curious of both art and luxury, so that might mean that you are brand new to the collecting journey, or you might be here because you're a seasoned collector and you've been busy in one space, but you're thinking about branching out and collecting in a new place. So all of this is for you. One of the most common questions that I get from collectors starting out is, should I work with an art advisor? If you were here earlier on our Watches panel, you heard Jeff Hess talking about how a big part of the process of starting out to collect is surrounding yourself with good people who can give you good advice. So I'd like to think that here at Sothebys, we are some of those good people that you can lean on to educate you, but a big part of the good people family are the art advisors and this business. So I'm super thrilled to be introducing this panel, Collecting with Confidence, Working with Art Advisor, an Art Advisor. Here to talk about what advisory means and how they add value, we have a really esteemed panel of advisors. The conversation is being led by Josh Baer, here on my right, founder and CEO of the eponymous Baer Fast, also a leading arts writer, advisor with 30 years of experience. This fall, we launched No Reserve, a free weekly newsletter designed to address the needs of new and aspiring art collectors. With him, we have Lowel Pettit, who's all the way on the left. Lowel is a New York-based art consultant, educator, and independent curator with over 18 years experience. He founded Pettit Art Partners in 2009 and is a member of the New Art Dealers Alliance and the Association of Professional Art Advisors. Rachel Carr Goulding is a partner at Ruth Catone Goulding, which she joined in 2011. She started her career in the photography department at the Met, later worked at Sothebys, serves on the board of the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum in Connecticut, and is a member of the Tate North America Acquisitions Committee. And finally, we have Alma Luxembourg. Alma is a partner of the New York and London-based gallery and private dealership Luxembourg & Co. with nearly 25 years of art experience under her belt. She sits on the selection committee for Frieze Masters and is a founding member of the Independence 20th Century Founding Committee. So please enjoy.
Thank you, Courtney. Before we get into what's going to be a little bit of a role-playing or understanding how art advisory works, I find it's useful to understand the audience a little bit. So if you're a collector, could you raise your hand? Pretty good. If you're an art advisor, could you raise your hand? Wow. If you want to be an art advisor and you're studying to be that, raise your hand. Okay. And if you're here for the free caviar after the talk, don't raise your hand. Okay. So it's interesting to be here at Sothebys talking about art advisory and how Courtney prefaced it. Because, I don't know, it was about 10 years ago that Sothebys bought an art advisory company for $85 million. That was clearly done from them listening to the demand and to do it in a way that was somewhat more independent. So it's sort of full circle to be back here. I know they believe in it, they put their money where it is. So what we're going to do is each one of our members of the panel is going to take the role of either being approached to be hired as their advisor or to be the client who wants to hire an art advisor. So when I approach them, we'll start with Lowel for emerging, Rachel for sort of mid, and then Alma, because she's a dealer, not really an advisor, is going to take the role of a collector and come to me. It's like, why should I hire you? So Lowel, you've got emerging artists as your thing. And I found you from my friend Elon. He said, you need an art advisor. I got this guy who's really cool named Lowel. So we're on the phone. It's like, are you licensed to be an art advisor?
The barrier of entry is surprisingly low. So we're honored to be a member of the Association of Professional Art Advisors, which is the de facto nonprofit. So I used to serve on the board with you. My business partner serves on the board currently. And we're proud of that. And other than that, I'm unaware of any license.
Like education, there's a course that you have to take. Does the state tell you? It's like, how do I know that anybody's...
These are all fair questions. And should we just launch right into it? I've been lecturing at the graduate level for nearly 25 years. I've lectured to the FBI, to McKinsey, to Christie's Education. I've served on the faculty of Sotheby's Institute of Art. for that time. So education, I think, I would say, is something that we care deeply for. I think it's funny that we presuppose expertise and the value add in much less opaque industries, whether it's a college guidance counselor, the hotel concierge to help you get a reservation. It should figure that to navigate this multi-billion-dollar international asset class, it might be a good idea to have somebody in your corner, and that's for ethical compass, that's for tax compliance, that's for the knowledge and previous history of buying work at auction in Asia, and so on and so forth.
So when you're meeting somebody new, are you interviewing them or are they interviewing you?
I think in truth they're interviewing us. We certainly have certain expectations and the notion of trying to establish a relationship that's not a short-term one, but a lifetime of collecting. The notion of trying to hitch your trail to somebody that's interested in long-term planned giving. The notion of, I've helped edit clients' kids' art history essays at UPenn. I didn't assume that was going to be part of the job description, but it was kind of fun. I didn't get paid for that, but it all comes out in the wash.
So I'm just starting, like, how do we start? What happens? What do you actually do?
Let's go to some shows. Let's join a young patrons group at a museum. Join multiple patrons groups at a museum. Let's organize your upcoming travel so that if you're in this specific town, visit all of the galleries in that town. Visit the best museum in that town.
I live in New York. There's 600 galleries. I don't think that scares me.
Well,
so go to shows like.
I'm happy to take you to my favorite. I just took a group to half a dozen galleries in Chelsea. I've been going to galleries since I was 10. I did not know that it was in the service of a future art advisory profession. I'm thrilled that it's a living wage, but it's the happiest, it's the through line of my life and career is still going to galleries with the frequency that I do.
Are you going to tell me what to buy?
We're going to talk about what you'd like to buy. I will caution.
I don't know what I want to buy.
I'm hoping, Josh, are you Elon right now? Through, I would say, a long-term exchange, back and forth, volley and serve, there's a really healthy dialogue that emerges, which often will arrive at one artist or one art historical moment, and then we start to tease out the conversation and say, you love Mark Rothko, but you don't have $88 million. Can I recommend a half a dozen young practitioners that I think are working in this space that are not just flying on borrowed fuel?
Can I do that just like online? Like ask if you like Mark Rothko, what would you like that's new? I think that was Artsy, by the way, that started with this. Not a facetious question. They started like Pandora for music, I think. If you like Jimmy Buffett, then you'll like Iggy Pop or whatever. So can I do that online?
I think you can. Most of the people that we know who spend more and more of their time in front of a screen are literally elated that there can be a real-time bricks and mortar human-to-human contact. We rely heavily on technology, but we often will close the transaction and finalize by looking at the nuances of the patina on a Richard Serra sculpture that's been in storage for 33 years in Bayonne, New Jersey, and it's currently on display on 21st Street. Run, don't walk. It's on until December 20th. Awesome.
I'm a little scared about all this time. It's like, how much time am I going to have to put into this? Really, it's got to be a long term. I'm new. I'm working. How much time is this going to take me?
Should I also cede the floor? I know.
No,
Okay.
it'll come up in different ways with everybody else. They can interrupt if they disagree or follow up.
I think the best things in life often take time. I think to do it right, you can buy a lot of art tomorrow. I recommend putting in the time now so that you're looking back at sage, shrewd acquisitions that perhaps even more importantly than things that have held or increased in value, but are things that actually genuinely sustain and challenge you interpersonally, intellectually. So, we make no guarantee of 3x returns. I would say that art advisor that does run the other way. We do make strong recommendations based on the critical community, the institutional base, but you're asking a great question, and I would say when it's done correctly, it is a long-term exchange.
Okay, so I could keep going there, but let me boot it over to Rachel, okay? I'm taking the role of somebody who's been collecting for a while. I did it on my own, and now, I know there's art advisors, sort of know what they're doing. It's like, now we've met through my friend Jeff, who now lives in Washington, and Jeff introduced us. So how does the first talk go, Rachel?
So I would say there are two goals that we have when we're working with any type of collector, from kind of emerging to midterm to long term. And the first is, I really feel like our job as advisors is to provide information. We're not making decisions for our clients, but we're giving them the confidence to make the right decision in terms of the best artwork at the fair price for an artwork. And then the second goal that we have, to echo Lowell, is to really work with collectors over the long term to put together collections that have enduring value. So we hope the clients that we work with build collections that have some sort of conceptual framework or theme, so the collection overall is more interesting than just randomly buying a few artworks that hang together. And in terms of like the mid-tier collector that comes to us, I think clients come to us at that level for a lot of different reasons. And I thought of a few examples, and I can explain how we work with them. I'm sure Josh will interrupt and ask me questions, which is fine. But the first scenario is a collector might own works by 10 different artists, but has heard about 5 other artists and has their eye on them and really wants to buy them, but has a hard time buying them from galleries. So I'd say clients definitely hire us for access. I have 2 partners and a few other people that work with me that all have relationships with galleries, dealers, auction house experts globally. So we have, I'd say, better access than if you just walk into a gallery on your own. The second scenario is maybe a client's made a mistake. They've overpaid for something. They bought something that was not in the best condition. So people hire us for our expertise.
Who's acknowledging the mistake? Me or you?
I'd say the client will often come to us that they're worried they overpaid for something, or maybe the auction process wasn't clear and they didn't understand what a guarantee was. Or
how do they respond when you tell them they made a mistake? So at some point you're seeing a PDF, right? Version 2 of what the collection is, right? That's pretty early on. You'll be saying, do you have a list of all that you have, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't that be pretty much the first thing?
Yes.
To do. So you start with that, they send you this stuff, and you go, uh-oh.
We don't usually say that right off the bat. We try and wait a little while, but I think unfortunately in this industry mistakes do happen because information is quite guarded. And so one of our goals as advisors is to make the information transparent and again provide information. And I'd say we do that in 2 fundamental ways. One, or historically, we have a large library in our office and we do all of our research in-house. So again, we are showing clients other examples, what's owned privately, what's owned publicly. And the second part is market information. Auction results are public. We have a large database of over 100,000 private transactions of artists that we've tracked over time, so we can show both private and public comps for objects, again, providing information for clients to make decisions that they're comfortable with.
It's also okay to change your mind, right? It's fine to buy something when you start and then decide later that it's no longer what
And
the direction you
upgrade,
want to go into.
You could start with an emerging artist and then realize that this artist was very influenced by an older artist, and I mean, that happens quite frequently. We have a lot of clients that come to us that have only collected vintage photography, but suddenly they're interested in abstract expressionism or so, and it's our job again to help them shape collections that make sense. We always have collections within collections. It's never so black and white, and often collections are more interesting when there are other levels in them. And then a third scenario I was going to say is the collection management side of things. Mid-tier to more senior collectors come to us because they haven't really taken care of their collections. They haven't databased it, they haven't gone over insurance values or condition reports, and so we really help with all the logistics of owning a collection too.
So I'll be circling back to some of these next questions would be the same for all of us. So I'll switch it a little bit to Alma. Nice to meet you. I'm Elon. It's like,
Good luck.
when I come back from Mars, I probably should own some art. I mean, everybody around me does. Like, I heard you were good.
Thank you.
Here I am. I've got a conference call in 15
I think probably, we work quite differently because we work with a group of collectors who we've been very close with, and there isn't a formal advisory agreement.
By the way, the 15 minutes is you have 15 minutes.
Oh,
I'm the advisor. I have all day.
I think that some of the things to think about are to do with how much you want to have a collection and how ready you are to dedicate time to it. I think that having an advisor is wonderful, but I think, every collector has to educate themselves and learn, and part of the process is also changing your mind, is also starting in one direction and pivoting towards another.
So as the advisor to a high end, I'm thinking, how much time am I giving you? Am I on the phone with you every day? Am I taking you privately to every auction? Do you need me to come along with you to every art fair? How much hand-holding, how much time are you looking for from me?
I think the collectors who arrive to working with us are often collectors who've been collecting for a very long time. And so really what they're looking for from us is access to amazing artworks. So that can take a very long time, there isn't...
But I know David, and I know Larry, it's like, we're sort of mixing back and forth our role. That's like, why do I need you to call Larry? Has me at dinner, like, every month.
So you definitely don't need me to call Larry, you're right. But,
Larry would rather actually talk to the art advisor, by the way.
But I think that you do need me to maybe think with you, looking at the works you have, who's the next artist or what's the next work that would complement what you have. Let's say you've been collecting works from the 1920s by artists like Magritte, and maybe that would lead you to have a conversation about looking at works by Miro from the 20s or works by Max Ernst from the 20s. This can be and where are those works? That's really the key.
So let me circle back down to me as a potential client. It's like, and things I might ask myself or ask you, it's like, am I supposed to like, who's in charge? You're telling me it's good and I don't like it, or how's that work? Is it, the internal thing is it, are you just pitching things you love?
I mean, I think the first thing to think about is that fascinating and challenging in the art world is that every gallery and transaction can be different. So too is every client coming with a slightly different set of parameters, preferences, bias. So in some cases it's more efficient, in some cases a lot more hand-holding. I think it should go a long way to suggest that some of the infrastructure that we offer, that you described, Rachel described, is a function of saying when the crate is lost or damaged, we will make it right. That's why we carry a global wall-to-wall insurance policy. That's why we have climate-controlled art storage. The logistics are onerous, they are many, and they are increasingly exorbitant. So I'm in the early days of my advisory, I hardly led with that foot. I'm not sure it's the sexiest one to lead with now, but I'll tell you, on top of getting an ethical compass, somebody who's been navigating the space, in my case with my partner for a combined 45 years, this will be my 24th Art Basel, will be the fair that I've gone to. To go once is a gift, but to go 24 times is pretty kick-ass too. And if our client wants to talk about that, I'm thrilled to opine as often or as little about that as they'd like. Every client is different on how much of that hand-holding they want.
And I was just going to say, in terms of our taste, I don't think it is our taste. I think it's, again, we need to provide the information to have our clients make decisions that they're comfortable with. I always say that, the first thing is you have to absolutely love the object. Obviously, art is a visual medium. The second, is it the best work by that artist you can find, and is it the right price for that object? And that's what we can help our clients figure out.
And if you don't like that artist?
It's not my collection, it's theirs. And that's happily why our clients' collections are so different from each other, too.
Yeah, so it's crucial to explain it's their money, their choice. You're there to provide history and money, so financial thing. But I think a new person is like, they're going to tell me what to buy, or what a lot of people who don't work with art advisors or collectors, they tell you not to work with an advisor because it's no longer yours. And I think there is some truth to that. I'm sure you've been to collections and you say to yourself, I know who the art advisor is.
That's true. That's true, but I think it's important to have access and to see. And sometimes that's hard to do when you start. You don't really know where to go. So I think that part of the job is actually the access to seeing great works of art, to understand an artist's practice and to see how that can work or change or even move your collecting, line in a direction or another.
We tell clients when they first start working with us, almost no matter what level they're at, not to buy something for at least 6 months if possible. I mean, everybody has different collecting urges and sometimes it's hard to hold people back, but 100% the more you see, you're gonna make a better decision months down the line. And in terms of time, we were kind of chatting about how much time you put into it before the panel started, and I think that you get out of it what you put into it. So the more time
Let
you
me
spend
come
with
back to that 6 months by asking a different question, because it'll adjust my comment there. How do you charge? Well, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, annual retainer, which standardizes 10% commissions on all acquisitions.
Plus a retain, and does that retainer get offset by,
Yeah.
okay, and you work?
We're the same. We have a monthly retainer and commission structure, and then also a flat annual fee, which is more appropriate for some of the collectors that have been working with the firm for 25 years.
I don't know if you want to weigh in on this, since you don't.
I don't, but maybe you.
Well, since all my clients that I have were working on commission, so you're telling me to work 6 months for free, right? And maybe 6 months or a year, maybe they'll buy something. And most art advisors work that way, or a very small retainer. So largely it doesn't matter to you. Take yours, as long as they're paying healthy fees. But for most other people, it becomes a real stressor taking you to 3 art fairs, 5 auctions, 47 galleries. You haven't, and you're having fun, and we have lunch, and I hear about your kid's bar mitzvah, but it ain't paying my kid's tuition. So isn't that the majority of people, or would it be better to work solely on retainer for you guys?
We know that, again, everyone, I think, works very differently. And a panel has been assembled of advisors that I care for deeply. This could be a more interesting conversation with people that I think are corrupt, which unfortunately describes some of our peers. So, for us...
Are you looking at Alma that way?
Oh, no.
But so for us, we're always curious about tweaking the business model, alternative ways to approach it. This has worked for us, I think, now for over 15 years. And oddly enough, I think you were alluding to this, or we're trying to, which is to say that financial arrangement, I hesitate to say, makes the client more apt to return a message. We have accountability to each other, and having worked without it for years, it on one level is more symbolic in that regard. It helps offset expenses of ours, but there's an accountability that makes for feedback. And we always say, bad feedback is just as good feedback. Never show me that again. Great, no problem.
But I would say to something and get right back to you, Rachel's, I don't mind yes, I don't mind no. I don't like it if I'm ghosted. So say I don't have time, I don't know.
I was just going to say, the retainer for us is just a commitment that you're into the process with us in the first place, so it is quite important. And then our other model, which is this fixed fee, really takes, I think we're completely objective no matter what, but it takes the commission off the table, and so clients, those clients again are the ones that have significant collections that have been working with the firm for a long time, so it's not appropriate for someone who's just starting out, but it really takes, it makes us, it ensures the objectivity. But onto the time question, I was just going to say again, I think the more you get out of it, what you put into it, but people have busy lives. People live all over the world. We really try and kind of adjust the services we're providing with each client to what their lifestyle is, and it takes time to figure that out also, which is another reason the retainer is important.
pretty tough if you don't have a retainer, right? So the incentive, but what do you think the most important word is? Sort of a layup question. You tell a client. Single word.
Caution.
I would say no. Okay. It's like, and it's kind of shocking to people because, especially if you're only on commission, and tell them don't buy that. And that's where I think the relationship builds. Same for people in the auction house or specialists. If they tell one of their clients enough, stop, that builds trust. So caution, certainly, but it's a different thing to say be cautious and say don't do that.
I think it's also, you have to think about it as a process. It's not that every single decision stands for itself. It's about a path that you're going through. And so, I think everybody in the collecting, process has made choices that later on they regret, or that they feel are no longer relevant, or somehow the collection with time changes direction. And I think that that's a natural part of it. You need to be open to it.
What was your, each of you, if there's one work or thing or artist that you said, that was a great success, I told them to buy or do this, and that was a really great failure. I'll just answer, one of my clients is delighted when I told him 3 kusamas were enough. And now he can lord it over me and see, you were wrong, and they like to be able to tell their advisors that they were wrong, you were right. So that would be like, that's true, let me tell you that. So a greatest and worst moment from the 3 of you on one artist or artwork, and then we'll open it for questions.
We're very proud. We placed that Jordan Castile painting from her inaugural show at Sargent's Daughters. That was a long time ago, and the insurance value has been changed on that work. I mean, rather than name a failure, I will just own the fact that there are several. I mean, whose markets, Aaron Young doesn't make art anymore. Those were really kind of fun and rock and roll for a while. I think he's living a better life. It's particularly difficult to justify that market when he's no longer making and they're really not trading. So the reason I had said caution versus no, although to be honest with you, I think most art advisors more often say no than yes, it's just the idea that at auction, obviously, you could buy the wholesale. So our job is to come up with a number that we think really is appropriate and which they could get out of if they have to on the other side. Sometimes there's no silver medal for come to being the underbidder, but we actually take a measure of pride because we said to ourselves, you know what? We chose the right number. We didn't get the piece, but we chose the right number.
Rachel, greatest hit and whatever the opposite is.
I think greatest hits, I have several clients who really enjoy getting to know artists and kind of growing with them. And so it's been very exciting to see people like Carol Beauvais, Julie Meritu, Mark Bradford, artists of, I would consider some of my clients' generations, and their kind of success that culminates in major museum shows over time. So that's been wonderful. On the other end, there are definitely times, most likely at auction, where, 15 years ago when there was a white kusama from the 50s, or before Joe Mitchell's market really took off, where we were underbidders and we had a very strict limit and the client wasn't on the phone, and obviously those were, we put in a good effort, but it would have been wonderful to have some of those objects.
Tough question. I think probably greatest successes are, possibly selling some fantastic works of art to public museums, a Cézanne to the Cleveland Museum of Fine Art, a Carla Cardi to the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. But I think in terms of failure, sometimes what's hard to do is to get the timing right. So we often work on exhibitions that are very focused and look at a particular moment in an artist's career. And sometimes you don't get the timing right vis-a-vis the market. So these shows, while they're a great pleasure to do and, give you a lot, but sometimes the market is not at the place you want it to be when you do that show.
So we're going to open up to questions. We have a raise your hand, hopefully somebody. Okay, and we'll go in the front first and in the back.
You've all been veterans in this field for so long. I was curious if you notice clients who have turned to platforms like Masterworks that fractionalize which of art, or if a client were to ask you, why should I continue my advisory relationship with you instead of turning to that approach, what your response would be?
We sell to Masterworks, we don't buy from Masterworks. It's like I go there when that's my last option, and the cake's already baked when they're trying to sell.
But I think you're missing the part of actually living with the art, right? So owning a share in an artwork is not the same as living with a painting. And I think that that's quite a big difference. So
And it's also such an incredibly small segment of the market. I mean, there are so many artists these days globally, and Masterworks is only looking at the investment side of it, which is a very single view.
I'd love to understand a bit of how you arrive at the right entry point price-wise on a piece, and also how do you get a sense of, is that artwork going to maintain value through time? What's your process really?
Yeah, I always say that in the most basic approach, I think that you can break down an analysis of any artist, young or old, one show, dozens of shows, at least on three, what I'll call them tracks or levers: critical, institutional, and commercial. So commercial obviously is how many galleries do they have? One gallery, 6 galleries, one abroad, one local. Are they great galleries, the big galleries, the small galleries? Institutional is what museums own the work, show the work, and critical is how often it's referenced in scholarship. To really consider an artist as an investment, you obviously have to have at least 2 of those levers, and you can't justify some of the numbers that are thrown at some people, but when you look at a Gerhard Richter, for example, had 3 tracks and almost immediately out of the gate. So whether it's an artist who's having their first show out of an MFA program, I'm trying to look at what that artist is borrowing from and where I think it will go, and I'm beginning to try to apply those 3 tracks.
I don't have anything else.
So, in the conversations I do have with my clients, they're twofold. Particularly, I do, and all of us, I think, have clients who are extremely successful in what their jobs are. And I say to them, listen, every day, except today, you're the smartest person in the room. You've become a billionaire or wealthy or built companies because you knew more than everybody else. It's like, today, you're the dummy, okay? That's hard for people there. So it's like, so how do we deal with it? So how do I get through all this information? So one of the things you have to learn is there's, in my mind, a threshold where the money matters. So if you're telling me that you like this painting, and I wrote about it last week, and $10,000, it's like, great, that's what you spent at dinner last night. Don't worry about it, okay? And then maybe for everybody has a number, and it's like, well, if I needed money to pay my, kids' college tuition, could I get it? Or if I needed a liquidity for a business opportunity, at a certain number, everybody has their threshold where it's equally about the number, okay? The other thing I say is, because I come at it from history, it's like, will a museum want it as a gift in 20 years? I'm not saying they would buy it, but would they be happy to have it? And the other question I sort of say to myself and to them, is it going to be at a night sale in 10 years, that artist? Will the market test it, or will it be an Ansem Riley or somebody young who's disappeared? I don't know if you want to weigh in on these things.
I think it's really hard to get it right. I think that you need to be conscious that, there are many artists markets have for a very long time been very low and suddenly jump up. And in the same way, there are many artists who in the 80s were super expensive and today are no longer at that level. And I think that focusing on getting it right in terms of investment is generally a pitfall. I think that you really should be looking at what else you get from the wonderful experience of living with art, and hope that you are making the right decisions, but be conscious that it might not be that everything you buy is the best investment decision.
Another question?
Yeah, thanks very much. My name is David. Given the youth of the audience, I was wondering, like, we talk a lot about collectors who have been collecting for a long time. Maybe you can shed light on how you can help young collectors who might have gone to like an art fair or a couple of them and bought a piece probably because they liked it, and more like streamline the process, or like, you know, help them in a certain direction to develop that.
If I could just make one comment there. I think young collectors mean different things now. It's not your age, it's how new you are to collecting. So in my mind, you could be 60 and a young collector, and you could be 30 and a very long-term collector. But
And there are also artists who are long gone that have been rediscovered, and so you could hardly use the term emerging, but I think you're absolutely right, it's been so confused. I mean, really at the outset, I hopefully made the case that I think there are the same processes for a seasoned collector, a new collector, by our measure, because admittedly there's more research when you're looking at a $4 million painting, but it's the same due diligence. I would say a great paradox for the new collector, but for all of us, is that a time of increased peer-to-peer and so much information online, some good, some bad, some really bad. I still end up defaulting some of the great curators and the great tastemakers and great gallerists, which is to say when an artist is making their solo debut, that means something very different at one gallery than it does at another. That is a very hard thing to communicate in an initial meeting with a prospective client, but it's my time of going to galleries since I was 10 that I think.
But you would say to them, maybe, what galleries do you go to? So that would be an early question. It's like, the early stage, it's about, how do I get information? Who do I read? What museum shows?
Yeah, so, I mean, echoing, I think the education phase, the first 6 months when we tell clients not to buy anything, is really about exposure. It's to gallery shows, the auctions, the art fairs, the museum shows. We're trying to introduce them to everything that they can see, whether it's in New York or London or Paris. And, you know, our job is to really cover all of these events globally and then filter the information to our clients depending on what they're interested in. So in the beginning, it's just really that exposure and the dialogue. I like this, I don't like that. If you like this Alex Katz, what else should I be looking at? And then over time, I mean, it really always surprises me that the clients, it's their eyes that build their collections and their points of view. And if we're doing our job correctly, over time, they're going to put together a collection that reflects their aesthetic.
So what I do is I say to them, give me a list of your 10 favorite artists. And you know how often they do that? Never, okay? But I start with that. Like, I'm interested in where you are, rather than and then I go, how about I give you, once they've said no, they couldn't do it, it's too hard, I don't know, they're a little shy, they don't want to make the wrong, they don't want to embarrass themselves. By the way, they don't want to look stupid to you. So then I give them the list of my 10, and they like, since they don't like to sit up at 3 in the morning on their laptop, I say, go do some homework. Charlie, there's another question here.
Full disclosure, I work at Sothebys, and the reason you are all here is because we think you're wonderful art advisors who are giving great advice. So this can be either, investment advice, taste advice, or, just artists you like. But I'm wondering for the younger audience here, including myself and my peers, what are two emerging either gallery programs or artists, kind of the question your clients asked you, Josh, just to get some free art advisor advice here, that you really love, and it doesn't need to be necessarily investment, it can just be artist programs or artists individually that you're watching right now, kind of in the under $50,000 or even $100,000, let's say, because under 50 can be hard these days, but under 100,000, let's say, price point that all four of you are looking at, either like or would support.
Yeah, see, again, I was hoping to avoid that, but
People pay us for that.
yeah, Karma Gallery, I would say the price points have quickly scaled out of your pain threshold, but in I would say the last, I think they've been around for 12 or 13 years, I think pound for pound and artist for artist and show for show, and that includes artist estates and much younger artists. I think they are crushing it. Thrilled with their Los Angeles expansion. Not sure if we'll see in the near future perhaps an expansion across the pond. I think there are a number of galleries that are of that level where it seems like obviously there's some galleries that are closing, which is not something to take lightly, and I think sadly we're going to see more of that. But I wonder about some of these galleries, about their next expansion, should they go that, is actually international. We've been so spoiled in New York to have players abroad open up here. It'd be interesting to see if, again, especially if the market supports it, if they go elsewhere. So that's one gallery. I mean, obviously there are so many galleries that I love.
I was going to say, we definitely talk to our collectors about having strategies. And since we don't work with artists directly, we often rely on the gallery owners because they've had success. We trust their point of view. They're out meeting with the artists all the time. And so when some of these programs take on another artist, we have to pay attention. And definitely one strategy is buying everything from that young program, because if that gallery is so promising, then that gallery is going to give you access to the other artists, and maybe not every artist will be successful, but a handful of them are probably going to be. And so some of the galleries that we think are very promising at an emerging level internationally are, I would say, Krev Kerr in Paris, Carlos Ishikawa and Evelyn in London, Matthew Brown in New York, just a few names.
I'm probably not the best person to give you advice on which young artists to collect, but I think that looking at collections, and actually you had this fantastic sale from the collection of Pauline Carpides just now in London, that's a really great example of a really quirky collection of somebody whose eye was so strong and was willing to really look widely, not narrowly at only a few people, but actually create a collection and live with it, and exactly as I was saying, really enjoy the art that's on the wall and learn from it and help you shape your thinking and your eye. So I think, courage is probably my best advice.
I'm going to answer this quickly. My staff has a question. It's like, I had a gallery for a long time. So 1985 to 95. And in those 10 years, I think I knew all the collectors. And there were 3 art advisors, basically. So the whole industry has changed completely. So it didn't even basically exist. And it's taken me a long time to get interested back into specific young artists, probably from the pain of representing them for so long that I recovered from it. The lady in red had a question.
So, as a young person, and as someone that has worked for galleries and advisors, one of the things that I think is one challenge, maybe one question that young people that are emerging collectors might have is, why should I have an art advisor when I have an interior designer?
I think that's a very different, those are 2 very different things. And I think we were talking about it a little bit earlier. Learning is a very big part of this process. If you're buying, 5 or 10 paintings to put at home, and that's the end of your ambition, then that's one thing. But if you're talking about art collecting, that's a different kind of a game. And for that, you really need to invest time. There's no substitute. You need to see a lot, you need to get good advice, you need to invest time. It's really not the same.
Unless you're telling me his name is Peter Marino, I'm going to tell you not to buy art from an interior, what does Mike call it, desecrator. It's like they're going to charge you 4 or 5 times as much as what these people do. They're only going to shop at places, they give them 30%. They don't have access around the world. Even if you're just doing your house and not collecting, that's the only say, don't do that. You're better off just going on your own, go to Sothebys, they see the price, raise your hand.
Yeah, I mean, if your designer, your architect is supremely informed, if their billing practices are totally transparent, if they have the peer sanction and engagement that I think people's are every waking minute, I'd say it's all good. And in truth, we've had wonderful collaborations with interior designers, architects. In some cases, we're on the first Zoom call with the architects. And so that's incredible because the collaboration is some of the parts of the complementary talents. I always joke, I'm not recommending the headboard and I'm not looking at fabric swatches. That is a skill set that I admire. So we try to stay out of that lane, much as if we're asked, we'll weigh in. We hope the reverse is also true. So again, it can go both ways. Sometimes it gets contentious, but it need not be adversarial. I also like Mr. Marino in that regard.
We've given the time is up sign, so we'd like to thank the audience for us being here. Thank you to Sothebys for this open house, which I think is a great way to try to get more people involved. Thank you, Alma, Rachel, and Lowel.